And joining me for all the chat today, Philip Ingram, MBE, former Senior Military Intelligence Officer. I love that you take your glasses off when I introduce you on the camera. I have to put mine on to read virtually anything.
Well, they shine in the light. That's why.
Oh, that's what it is. We want to be able to see those sparkling eyes.
Yeah, and I've memorised everything, and therefore don't need to read it.
Well, you're a military intelligence officer, so I'm guessing you can just look at everything and go, yeah, it's all in. I've got it all.
Upside down. Reading upside down on a desk.
Can you do that?
I used to be able to do that, yes.
Quite
a good trick.
Philip Ingram is a... No, what did you read?
Oh, no, I can't put that out in there.
Lots to talk about. Let's start with our breaking news the last hour, though. The Football Association of England, got to put the glasses back on again. It follows a similar move by the Scottish FA this week after that UK Supreme Court ruling just a couple of weeks ago that women are defined by biological sex. Duh, like we all knew, but they're going to be banning male players who claim to be women. Now, let's if we use the correct terminology, it's easier to understand. Why are you banning women from playing women's football? No, we're not. We're banning men who claim that they are women or think that they are women from women's football. That's from next season. In Scotland, only players who were female at birth, always female, will be allowed to play in women's football over the age of 13. The crucial thing is if you've gone through male puberty, you've got the testosterone, at the end of the matter, you have a male advantage. I don't think it needs to be any complicated. You're either male or female and you play in the correct sex category. But a statement from the English FA said, as the governing body of the national sport, our role is to make football accessible to as many people as possible, operating within the law and international football policy defined by UEFA and FIFA. Our current policy, which allows transgender women to participate in the women's game, was based on this principle and supported by expert legal advice. It wasn't ever expert. This is a complex subject. No, it's not. And our position has always been that if there was a material change in law, science or the operation of the policy in grassroots football, then we would review it and change it if necessary. No change in the science, certainly. There's actually been no change to the law. They just weren't applying the law. Supreme Court ruling means that we will be changing our policy. Transgender women will no longer be able to play in women's football in England as of 1st of June 2025. I love they say, we understand this will be difficult for people who simply want to play the game they love in the gender by which they identify. Well, tough.
No, tough.
I mean, well, tough.
Exactly.
What about all the women and girls who really want to play the game of football but can't play it because they're so fearful of being tackled by a man who's 6 foot tall and has the body mice? I mean, sorry. The people who are claiming that men can become women and women become men, well, they're just mad and liars, or both. I know there are people who genuinely believe that they are born in the wrong body, and I have every empathy and respect for you, but you aren't. We're happy to give you respect and kindness. I don't want people to discriminate against you, be prejudiced against you, but you don't get to acquire the rights of the body that you think you have, that you're the brain that you think you have.
Simple chromosome test.
Simple chromosome test. But we don't even need a chromosome test. I can look at you and you can look at me. We know what we are. But when you look at some of these players who've gone into not just football, but into many other sports where it is men competing in women's sports, it is blatantly obvious by the fact that, hey, they're on the podium winning and they're winning a race by 10 meters or by 5 seconds or something, when normally it's like by 0.002 of a second, or when they are clearly head and shoulders above. And we are seeing women, there have been women football players who have been seriously injured because they're being tackled by someone who is twice their weight, their size, their physical strength. The physical differences between men and women are so blatantly obvious. It's embarrassing that anyone claimed they weren't there. And a bit of taking a bit of testosterone or not taking a bit of testosterone or whatever, or a puberty blocker, doesn't make a difference to that.
Yeah, well, these experts, expert, X, something historical you usually want to forget, spurt, a drip under pressure. So they've been relying on drips under pressure, historical drips under pressure to give them the advice. But I hope what we're saying from the Football Association is the start of a new pandemic. And it's a pandemic of common sense. I mean, you hope so, but they've only been forced into it by the Supreme Court.
Well, exactly. And of course, that always amazes me is, as we said, Keir Starmer changed his view on trans women or not women based on the Supreme Court. But I mean, the Supreme Court ruling simply clarified the law. It didn't change any of the science or the reality. That I would agree or disagree with the Supreme Court ruling. It wouldn't change my view. If the Supreme Court said, no, being a woman is not based on biology, and they'd gone against my view and the view of the women from For Women Scotland and Sex Matters and others, I wouldn't have gone, oh, well, fair enough. The judges have said that. I mean, how would you... I don't know how you can have an honest view and it changes because of the courts. I think it's absolutely absurd. But the law is clarified. End of. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text on 87222. Get in touch with us on X at TalkTV as well. Also love to hear your thoughts on Labour's biggest union backers, Unite, now backing GMB as well, union, basically over the government's net zero energy policies, basically saying, look, this is about job losses. This is a millstone around the neck of politicians. You know, there's 500,000 green jobs that we've heard so much about. Lol, never going to happen. I'm sure there will be a green revolution at some point. If there is a green revolution, it's happening in China, where they're using coal-fired power stations to basically actually make big factories work, where they are producing all of those. Wind turbines and solar panels, which they're shipping over here on diesel-powered tankers for us to put up here. I mean, there aren't any jobs in it for us. We're losing jobs as a result of this policy. It's a good thing the unions are speaking out, isn't it? Well,
it's a fantastic thing the unions are speaking out, and I'm surprised, and I think this is an indication of we're probably going to get into a summer or autumn of discontent, because we're starting to see more and more unions moving away from government policies that are coming out. So
and they're also unhappy about the pay deals, because
and the NHS pay deals and other things. So there's a lot brewing in the background, and it doesn't bode well for.
But do you think that the Labour perhaps thought, well, when we're in, of course, the civil service will be on our side. They've been on our side for years. They're going to carry on working, for us. All these unions, we're going to give the various paymasters, big deals, train drivers, doctors' unions and others, and people. And again, and some of the pay deals are offered. They were right. Some of the pay demands and some of the independent pay review body solutions, around the 3-4% mark, they're above inflation. But we're still going to be talking about public sector workers, teachers, nurses, and others who are still going to be earning less now in real terms than they did 10, 20 years ago. I don't have a problem with them getting those sort of pay rises. The trouble is, how do you pay for it, other than raising taxes for everyone else or cutting vital services that people desperately need?
Well, exactly, and this is where there needs to be, the government's come up with a plan for growth, but again, a lot of the policies that they're coming out with are anti-growth in everything that they do. So there's a complete lack of coherence across the board, and I think the coherence is going to be forced on the government, and if it's going to be forced on the government by the unions doing a reset, yes, it is reality, but union-derived reality tends not to bode well for the stability of the country.
What do you make of the failure of Number 10 yesterday in Keir Starmer to basically guarantee Ed Miliband's job as Energy Secretary and Net Zero Secretary?
Milliwatt's about to be turned off.
You think so? Does that solve anything, though? As I keep pointing out, he didn't come up with the policy. Keir Starmer's backed it. It was in the manifesto that his people wrote. He appointed him.
Yeah, we're about due a government reshuffle anyway.
It's weird, this idea in this country that we should reshuffle people all the time and have different people in the job. Just when they get to grips with how to work their civil service blob, they get moved on. That's why we've never had any bloody decent decisions on housing or anything. There was a point, I think, under the Tories where we'd had about 15 housing ministers.
Or they don't get to grips with the department. That's part of the trouble. And this is where you have to recognise that you can invest as much time as you want in trying to get someone to run their department.
Some people can't do it.
But then you have to realise that they may be the nicest person, they may be your best mate, you've rewarded them into that job, but they can't do it, and you have to move them on. And we haven't had that reset yet from Keir Starmer.
Well, also there's an element, isn't there? Yes, you've made promises.
Yes.
And, the only person who got put out, I think, last time I was Emily Thornbury.
Yeah.
That was at least one good decision. But I'm not sure David Lammy was the right decision on that front, but there we are. There are quite a lot. I mean, again, in terms of shadow opposition spokespeople, Kemi Badenoch's got rather few MPs to choose from. Everyone's having to kind of do two jobs, aren't they? Well, look, I'd love to hear your reaction to that on the net zero policies, and indeed on the union stepping up, Ed Miliband's job, and indeed also Norway, senior Norwegian minister saying to Britain, don't give up on oil. We'll never turn our back on North Sea oil like you have. And again, the madness of us being told, we're at the mercy of international energy prices and gas prices, and that's why we got so hard hit by the Ukraine war and things. But other countries also at the mercy of international energy prices weren't as hard hit as us. Why not?
Yeah, well, and with Norway, they want us not to take North Sea oil and gas because they're drilling into the same oil fields and gas fields.
Are they not separate? Do we not have a delineation?
Well, there is a delineation, but you don't know what's really happening under the ground, and they're all linked. And the delineation line is a line down the North Sea saying that's Norwegian territory, that's UK territory, and some of the oil fields are underneath.
And when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, we need to get our energy from somewhere. A lot of the time we get it from Norway.
Yes.
I mean, we could be getting it ourselves.
Exactly.
Oh no, but we'd be at the mercy of international gas prices. Well, then how come America hasn't been when they've been fracking?
Policy, and how come our energy prices are greater than anywhere else in Europe?
Yeah, I mean by 50%, and for industrial energy prices 4 times that of America.
We pay more than the Russians, who are under sanctions for energy.
Yeah, very, very fair point. I mean, they just run on vodka, don't they?
Yeah.
Literally the entire country is runs on vodka.
Scotland runs on whiskey.
I have never ever got over being in Sharm el-Sheikh airport. This was a couple of weeks before the bomb that meant you couldn't go to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt anymore. But we used to go there, years and years, cheap and cheerful holidays. Costa del Sol in Egypt. No guaranteed, no rain. I'm sitting in the airport, and virtually everyone else in the airport from our one flight were Russian, and people were literally. I mean, they were having to restock the vodka shelves. I mean, roughly every 5 minutes, people were literally going in, buying a bottle of vodka. They were having pint glasses and they were pouring pints of vodka. This is the women, by the way, not just the men, and drinking. They've got kids with
those little baseball caps with the cups and the straws that go down.
I'm talking genuinely. We actually, with our kid, we went and hid in a corner because we were so scared of the feeling of aggro in the airport, the fact that everyone in that airport was about a pint of vodka in. It was a very bad atmosphere. And when that horrific bomb attack on the Russians happened, someone pointed out to me, no one would have felt a thing. Yeah. Because but genuinely, that whole country is running off. I know it's the only country. It's the only country where the mortality rates. The mortality rate's going up, but also their longevity is going down because of cirrhosis of the liver.
Exactly. Well, I don't
know why we got onto this.
I've worked with the Russians before and seen what their drinking habits are, and deliberately avoided going off for things.
You think we're bad? You think we're bad in Britain? The Spanish think we're bad.
So the impact it had on some of my colleagues, but those are stories not for on air.
Indeed. Anyway, I'm sure there'll be a few vodkas taken tonight with this beautiful weather in Britain. But anyway, get back in touch. I want to hear from you. Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. Text on 87222. Get in touch on X at TalkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost 1. Standard network rate message. Let's also talk about this trade deal, the Donald Trump UK trade deal, apparently on the back burner. However, a mineral deal with Ukraine signed and sealed. How significant is that?
I think it's very significant, and the mineral deal is nothing like had been talked about beforehand. It's actually an investment fund to rebuild Ukraine, is how it's been put out.
Why has it changed so much from what it was previously?
Well, I think this
was basically you owe us everything.
Yeah, I think this is down to a lot of hard work from President Zelensky in the background, but I'll put in there probably from Francois Macron and Keir Starmer as well, trying to help influence.
I think they've done a really good job. I will always give credit where it's due.
I think they are doing a good job in trying to bring the United States into the planet Earth when it comes to reality.
But don't you think that Vladimir Putin kind of, cut off his nose, spike his face? We're talking about, let's have he's talking about this, a temporary peace, truce over this coming weekend, but also, a few days over Easter, like 24 hours virtually, clearly broken, but also the bombing of civilian targets in Kyiv. By the way, no one's talking about genocide about that, are they? It's only apparently when the Israelis do it. It's an issue for people. Don't care about Ukrainian children dying at all. But I thought that rather undermined Putin's case that, I'm looking for peace.
Oh, completely undermined. Putin does want peace. I don't think Putin can afford peace. And he's missed so many opportunities where...
What do you mean he can't afford peace?
Well, I think he's got to a position now where he's got so much invested in the conflict. If the conflict ends and he starts to have to disband his military, he's going to have tens of thousands of injured men coming back, but tens of thousands of men that are going to be suddenly unemployed, but they're trained killers.
And it's a wartime economy. And virtually all the violent offenders in prisons have been let out.
Yeah, and therefore I think he's getting to that point where it's going to be very difficult for him to extract himself from it, and the personal risk to him then is going to go through the roof. So he doesn't want this to finish. Exactly.
I mean, he's quite happy with that meat grinder as long as he's not in it. Can I also ask you about the latest? I mean, I cannot believe these cases still keep coming, but they do. They are virtually every day. This is the latest case of an asylum seeker who's won the right under human rights claims. Again, total misinterpretation. It's not an interpretation, misinterpretation of human rights laws and rights here in this country. He's on the right to remain in the country. He's a Ghanaian asylum seeker. I don't know why you need to have asylum from Ghana. He's argued that he's too traumatised by getting COVID to return to his home country. Winfred Kwabla Dogbe was diagnosed with PTSD after he was hospitalised with the virus back in 2020. He did have severe COVID illness. He had multiple organ failure. The 52-year-old told a tribunal he'd been experiencing post-COVID-19 syndrome. It was part of a rehabilitation programme for those impacted. And they heard that this type of treatment in the West African country that he's getting was practically non-existent. Oh no, what a surprise.
Oh, dear.
Psychiatric care insufficient, and therefore he would have a rapid and severe decline in his mental health. So he's won his claim to stay in the UK. Guess where? In the upper tier tribunal. I mean, he came here in April 2013 on a visa, claimed asylum 3 years later. When this was refused, has basically carried on making these claims. I mean, he's a wrong 'un. He's here illegally. He should have been thrown out the moment his visa expired, let alone when he made a dubious claim 3 years later. And we've heard more about this from Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, recently, that this is now a common thing. People arrive here legally, and then as soon as their tourist visa, work visa, student visa or whatever runs out, oh, it turns out I need asylum, I can't go back. But I mean, I'm really sorry that the health care and the psychiatric care in your country isn't as good or as mediocre as it is in this country.
But tough.
Not my problem, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't you work and campaign in your home country to improve the lot of people in your country? Are we now just going to take in every single person from a country which doesn't have a decent healthcare system? Because that's a couple of billion people.
Well, this is one side of the judiciary that has not had the common sense pills yet. We keep seeing the different cases, but
all be ousted.
One of the things I read about yesterday, and it's not related to this case, but there was a judge in one of the asylum-seeking decision-making tribunals who was a part-time judge, but the rest of the time worked for a charity helping asylum seekers go through the asylum process.
But he's completely neutral.
Completely neutral. It was a she. Was completely neutral and would not let one impact the other. Well, I'm sorry, that in professional terms is conflict of interest and should not be allowed.
One of the things we're always told, though, we need more judges from diverse backgrounds, sort of things like that. But they don't. In no way do judges bring in their personal views or personal experiences in their tribunal or court rulings. Well, which is it? Because if judges don't bring that in, then
you don't need
then we can just have old white men making all the decisions, can't we? Or are you saying that women have different decisions, or people of different ethnic groups or religious groups or different classes bring different things to those judgments? So I mean, it's one or the other. It can't be both. As always with these things. It's just a basic... The lack of logic in these thinking is extraordinary.
So common sense pills to be delivered to the upper tribunal judges,
please, to the love of God.